All right, everyone. I am here with Team Uninstallation. Is that y'all? I'm not.
No,
sure.
we're 5 sheets to the wind.
5 sheets to the wind. Apologies. That's who's coming next. I'm here with 5 sheets to the wind with their game Libertalia, Pirates Paradise, and they're going to be here demoing their game while I ask them questions. The first thing I like to ask is just, could you give us a brief intro to the game, and at any point, if you want to start playing it, feel free. But tell me about it. Tell me about Libertalia.
Yeah, so Libertalia, Pirates Paradise is a base building strategy game. You are a pirate captain, you have your crew, and you're trying to build this paradise for your crew. But to do that, you gotta get resources. So you gotta go out and you gotta be a pirate. You gotta plunder. You gotta fight skeletons. You gotta fight colonialists. I thought Confederates in my mind for a second because people start with C. You gotta fight colonialists. You gotta explore the high seas and find islands. That's pretty much the rundown. You build out your outpost, attract more pirates to join your crew, keep your crew loyal, and they'll work harder for you. And that's Libertalia.
Awesome. Is there anything that inspired this project, or?
We have a lot of things that went into the inspirations for this project.
Sure.
I think initially it started off between Northgard, which is an RTS game, but also Fallout Shelter and games like that.
Yep.
So a little bit more where it's broken up and it's more about progression over time, but combined with RTS elements as well. So we wanted to make sure that people have, they're differently paced over time, but it adds to the excitement of the game overall.
Fantastic. So when did this game start development? How long have you been working on it?
We started sometime in September this year, and we worked for a few months during that semester, took winter break pretty much entirely off, some small things here and there with the procedural generation stuff, but and then just worked through the semester.
Fantastic. Awesome. Where does the title come from?
So Libertalia is a realistic place, sometimes also known as Libertatia. It is a pirate paradise that actually existed. It was a utopia, in theory, that existed on Madagascar. Again, the accounts of it are a little bit hazy. Some people think that, it's not actually real, because the guy who wrote it was also a known liar about a lot of other things about pirates.
Okay.
So it may have existed, it may not have. It's also in some other media, like Uncharted 4, I think, uses
cool.
Libertalia
Nice.
as well. But yeah.
That's awesome. All right. Do you want to dive in for us? And
Yeah, absolutely.
Talk us through a little bit.
I'll have you guys talk us through while I play.
Awesome.
All right.
Yeah, so I guess our game is broken up into 3 different phases, and starting with the first one is our outpost here. At the outpost in particular, this is where the root of your Pirate's Paradise begins. This is where you can upgrade buildings, maintain your crewmates, and utilize the resources that you gain from abroad. But starting off here, you come from a vigorous battle that you had to flee from. So Kyle's playing through our tutorial here. So he's placing a farm. A farm is one of our resource producers, and then the housing as well. On the other hand, gives us space to be able to accumulate more and bring more crewmates on board. So, good.
Here he's just assigned to his crewmates to build the structures. Part of the outpost phase is managing your crewmates, putting them to work so that things actually get done, because then you take the rest of your crewmates onto the ship, you set sail, and this is where one of the key, I say resources in quotations because it's more of it's not a resource that you gain and choose how to spend, it just spends on its own, but by sailing, you pass time, days pass, and as you're out sailing, stuff gets done back at the outpost.
Very cool.
So it's kind of like our take on similar games like Clash of Clans and stuff will be like, oh, wait 5 minutes or spend gems to do it faster. And for us, it's more like, if you're actually sailing, then time in the world is passing. That's the time passing.
Sure, there's an immersion element to it.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And so that's our exploration phase. You can see there was the map, and you can see all the islands around, and you can pick an island to go to, and it says how many days it takes to get there. So now he's landed on an enemy island. This is the tutorial one that it directs you to. And this is where you manage your crew for combat, so you can send your crewmates to zones, and if they're red, they're unclaimed, so you got to send them in to fight off all the enemies and claim the territory. And some zones will have structures like the ones that you would have back at the outpost, and if you claim those, then you get a little extra resources. Like, oh, there's a house here. Well, if we cut it down, now I got a bunch of wood. Or there's a farm over there. I cut it down, I get a bunch of food. Another thing that players can do in combat, once we get through this text, is they have access. You're a pirate. You have a pirate ship. You got cannons, and so you have these different types of cannon shots that you can fire that have different effects. That's the fire shot that just creates this big flame that burns anything in that zone for a couple seconds. You've got a grape shot that can do high damage to 1 or 2 enemies at random. And then you've got like a regular cannonball that'll just hurt everyone. But there's an element of risk to it because while your crewmates know friend from foe, big hunks of metal don't. So if whatever's in a zone when you fire a cannon, that's getting hurt. If your guys are in there.
Friendly fire.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, Kyle's showing off all our best strategies, so
Nice.
so you
Oh man, there's already a meta in this game right now. Just kidding.
There is absolutely a meta.
So when you finish, say, like this tutorial, so have you like quote unquote claimed that island now? Kind of because you worked your way through it, or it's not so much like that?
Currently, the way it works is if you go back to that island at another time, like if you go back again after returning to the outpost, the enemies are going to be back.
Okay, so you can more farm it.
Yeah.
Nice.
The idea, that we hope for later down the line, if we end up progressing with this further, is it would be kind of a time-based system where it's, it's not immediately the island repopulates, but, you're not the only pirates out in the sea. Over time, other pirates are going to come around and maybe they'll think, oh, I'm going to, set up shop here a little, and so slowly the enemies will come back a little, and then you'll be able to come back and fight some more guys.
You'll gain notoriety as you grow, and I mean that's the whole thing with the Pirate's Paradise. Is it a physical location or is it the people, the environment?
Oh,
so,
I like that.
If you have allies around you or enemies, that's just the strategy that stems from. So, yeah.
So, well, you kind of touched on this a little bit, but what is, if anything, what's next for Libertalia? Sorry, I always say around it. Is there anything next exciting or?
Yeah, I think we're kind of at the point right now where we're still trying to figure out what we're going to do. Right now, this is also our capstone for actually being able to graduate. So I think at the moment we're a little bit short-sighted on like, hey, like let's make sure that we actually hit all the things we need to hit in order to get the grade, right? I think we've talked about it a little bit in terms of what we would want to do moving forward. Ultimately, there is a chance that we do look forward to publishing this or getting it out there. But I think there's still discussion to be had about that once we kind of complete our post-mortem for the semester of work that we're doing right now.
That's awesome. What's a challenge that you like that really pissed you off that you overcame, or something that you're really proud of that you ended up figuring out or puzzling through?
Mine's going to be more technical related, just because, I mean, there's a lot of design things, but the main things I have to deal with ends up being Unity bugs. We've ran into a few issues where because there's the editor, so when we're building the game, we work in the editor, and then there's the build, which is the final rendition of it. When we have a complete and working edit in the editor itself and it's functioning, and then we randomly end up seeing bugs that are not proven in the editor that arise when we make a build. Very confusing for us because it's harder to debug first. And it adds to a little bit of frustration. Maybe not as interesting. It's just something that we have to deal with, and most people have to deal with when using not their own game engine. But there's actually a lot of other, I guess, more design-related issues that we've came across that I think are a little bit more fun to talk about.
The one that comes to mind for me mainly, because the thing that I've been putting most of my time into has been the onboarding. Because a lot of we've been, I guess, our step-by-step in what we've chosen to approach first or last may be a bit different from other teams, because early on we got feedback that, I'm not understanding how to play the game. You should be, I don't want you to be standing behind me telling me, but there should be things in the game telling us how to play. You guys should look into onboarding, and we're getting a lot of that feedback from our professors. And other games weren't getting that feedback so much in terms of, oh, you should have solid onboarding, because they would get the opposite of, oh, don't worry about the onboarding until you really lock down the fundamentals, because things are always going to be changing. And so since we had that initial feedback of no, give us onboarding, it's been a challenge of constantly iterating the explanations, or iterating,
Sure.
when we add new features, or when we add new steps that come in between, I have to take it all apart, put it all back together, and obviously it's a necessary evil in a sense.
Yeah.
But it's still a
really
big challenge to always be like, all right, how do I have to rework this for the next big change?
Yeah, and a note to build off of that, not to extend it too much, but if Kyle goes back to the outpost here, you'll see there's a lot of UI in our game. Being a strategy-oriented game,
Totally.
there's a lot of information you need to know when it comes to like how to best organize yourself
Totally.
for something like this. So, for instance, there we have a lot of tool tipping. That was a more recent add, just because we
That's
want
awesome.
people to know what is going on in the game, what all the
Totally.
items are. And it's something you see in a lot of other RTS games, whether it be like Age of Empires or Rise of Nations, or I can name a billion. But yeah, that's something that I think we've struggled with. That has been a really pain in the ass, as you mentioned, because there's just
Well, it's hard to
what's the
explain
best way to do it,
Yeah.
and none of us, the 5 of us on the team, are designers.
Yeah.
Or like UI designers, I guess,
Sure.
would be like, we're not artistically gifted by any means.
I think it looks fantastic. Be nice to yourselves. Be nice.
Kyle's probably the more artistically given here, but yeah, it's definitely been difficult for us to
Yeah.
figure out how to give enough information without it being overwhelming to the player.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I really like that because it's hard sometimes to explain, like, you all probably know this better than you know anything else, like the back of your hand. So I'm sure it's a challenge to like explain something that you're like, well, I see it, I understand it, but trying to explain how that's going. Awesome. So I was curious, as someone who loves Settlers of Catan, do you ever get the question, are the tiles based off of that, or is that was just something?
So
Is it a question you hate, to be fair?
I'll
'Cause
just
I'm
quickly
sure you
jump
do
in
that.
real quick, because
Do we hate this question?
when someone was playtesting about like an hour and a half ago, these 2 girls walked up and they just went, oh, for like 10 seconds. And I was thinking, oh, are they really excited? And they go, is this Catan?
You're
I was
like, yeah,
like,
we
no,
just,
it's not
we just
Catan.
ported it. We ported the board game to online.
No, this was actually probably one of our bigger challenges, or pivots, I guess. Moving into, or the first semester of work, basically up through December, we actually didn't have hexes at all in our game.
Okay.
We wanted it to be pretty natural terrain and broken up in ways. It's like, okay, you can place your houses, you can do things in pretty much any way you want. As long as they fit, they can sit
Right.
wherever they want. We received some feedback during our midterm presentation, basically, that's like, hey, do you guys pass this term? That was like, why did you guys use squares? Because we basically were like zoning the houses a little bit instead of hexes, and because especially a lot of RTS games and strategy games in general use hexes, so there's
Okay,
kind of there's an expectation that the zoning is kind of using that.
Okay.
And so our big pivot was towards that, and eventually it leads to the procedural generation work that Zaf here has done, and
Fantastic.
it has come a really long way. So,
Awesome. Is there anything else to add that you want to add before you wrap up? Or should we just keep an eye out for y'all on Steam?
Keep
Coming
an eye- I mean,
soon
we,
to,
we got an itch page, so you keep an eye
Yeah.
out there for now.
Fantastic.
Oh yeah, and real quick, since we've just
Please,
come
yeah,
back,
let's hear it.
one of the elements, of course, you have a pirate crew, you got to expand it,
I
and
love
so
the art style of that character.
that is actually one of our older images. We had to actually rework and remove those so we could get the portraits to actually match the characters
Oh,
in
I
game.
see. Okay. Well, they look great.
So that's kind of a remnant of an older time.
All right.
But again, yeah, you have this pirate crew, but obviously, you need to build and expand your crew if you want to really make a presence in the seas. And so if you have taverns built, because pirates love a good drink of ale, you're going to attract other pirates. If your crew's loyalty is high enough, then obviously other pirates are going to think, wow, these guys are really loyal. I want to come work for this guy. And so
Totally.
you're going to attract more crew members to hire onto your crew.
Fantastic. All right, well, thank you so much. Again, this was Libertalia, a Pirate's Paradise. And thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure.
Pleasure.